Zion, Zion. Zion, Zion, Dalet.
Yes, I doubt it.
Reb Elliot said in the name of Reb Yeshua, any tumor from a corpse for which a Nazir shaves, one is liable because of it for entering the temple. And any tumor from a corpse for which a Nazir does not shave, one is liable for it for entering the temple. Reb Meir said this should not be more lenient than tumor contracted from a creeping thing. Reb Akiva said, I reasoned before Reb Eliezer, if for a bone the size of a barley grain, which does not contaminate a person by way of a roof, the Nazir shaves for touching it or carrying it. For a quarter log of blood, which contaminates a person even by the way of a roof, is it not clear that a Nazir should shave for touching it or carrying it? He said to me, what is this, Akiva? We cannot reason here by a Kal. When I came here and related these things to you, to review, you said to me, "You have spoken well, but so they have said it is as an oral law." Oral law. Two Nazirim are two Nazirim to whom an individual said, "I saw that one of you became tamei, and I don't know which one of you, but they both shave." And they bring jointly a sacrifice of Tuma and a sacrifice of Tahara. And one of the Nazirim say, if I am the one who is Tameh, the sacrifice of Tuma is mine, and the sacrifice of Tahara is yours. But if I am the one who is Tahor, the sacrifice of Tahara is mine, and the sacrifice of Tuma is yours. Then they count 30 days and bring jointly a sacrifice of Tahara. And he says, if I was the one who was Tameh, the sacrifice of Tuma was mine, the sacrifice of Tahara was yours, and this is my sacrifice of Tahara. But if I was the one who was Tahor, the sacrifice of me, Tahara was mine, the sacrifice of Tuma was yours, and this is your sacrifice for Tahara. If one of them died, Rabbi Yeshua said he should seek out someone from the street who will vow to be a Nazir parallel to him and say, if I would tummy to you, if I was tummy to you are a Nazir at once, but if I was Tahor, you are a Nazir after 30 days. Then they count 30 days and bring jointly a sacrifice for Tuma and a sacrifice for Tahara, and he says, if I am the one who is Tameh, the sacrifice for Tuma is mine, and the sacrifice for Tahara is yours. But if I am the one who is Tahor, the sacrifice for Tahara is mine, and the sacrifice for Tuma is offered out of doubt. Then they count 30 days and bring jointly the sacrifice of Tahara, and he says, if I am the one who is Tameh, the sacrifice of Tuma is mine, the sacrifice of Tahara was yours, and this is my sacrifice of Tahara. But if I am the one who is Tahor, sacrifice of Tahara was mine, sacrifice of Tuma was offered out of doubt, and this is your sacrifice for Tahara. And Zoma said to him, and who will listen to him to vow to be a Nazir parallel to him? Rather, he brings a bird as a sin offering and an animal as a burnt offering and says, if I was Tameh, the sin offering is part of my obligation, and the burnt offering is voluntary. But if I was Tahor, the burnt offering is part of my obligation, and the sin offering is out of doubt. And he then counts 30 days and brings a sacrifice to Tahara and says, if I were Tameh, the first burnt offering was voluntary, and this one for my obligation. But if I was Tahor, the first burnt offering was for my obligation, and this one is voluntary, and this is the rest of my offering. Yeshua said it results that this one brings his offerings piecemeal, but the sages agree with Ben Goma. A Nazir who was in doubt whether he was Tameh and in doubt also whether he was confirmed to the Torah, he may eat sacred foods after 60 days. And drink wine and contaminate himself with the tumor of the dead after 120 days, because shaving for the affliction for Saras over overrides shaving for Naziris when the former is certain, but when it is doubtful, it does not override it. Okay.
All right. Um, Now, who can make a Naziris? Goyim ein lehem Naziris. So even if a non-Jew says I'm a Nazir, we don't. It's not binding. There's no such thing as a Naziris by a non-Jew. However, Nashim va'avadim yesh lehem Naziris. Women and even Canaanite slaves have the ability to declare a Naziris upon themselves. However, there is a certain there's a certain leniency with them in that for a woman, her husband can cancel her Naziris and within certain parameters, and for a slave, the master can override the Naziris. He cannot cancel it actually, but what he can say is, you had no right to take on a Naziris because I have the right to your work, and you're weakening yourself by not consuming wine. Or I need you to help me to clean up this space of press or whatever it is, some area that requires you to become tame. So you had no right to restrict your ability to work for me, and the master can then force him to work. So let's see that inside. So chome ben nashim ba'avadim. There's a certain stringency by women as opposed to slaves. Shu kofe es avdo. Right, the master can force his slave to break his Naziris, as I just said. But Eino kofe es ishto. But he cannot force his wife. Once his wife has legitimately taken on a Naziris, he cannot force her to violate a Naziris. Okay, but the stringency of the slaves over wives, shehu mayfair nidre ishtor, because the husband on the day that he hears about the vow is allowed to nullify the vow. Um, or cancel it, let's say, is probably better because it's not retrospective. It's from then onwards that it's cancelled. Okay, but Eno Mayfair Nidre Avdo, but he has not got the ability to cancel his slave's vow, which means that if at any point the master says, okay, take a break from work for a few days, then when he's not working, then he has to fulfill his Naziris. So even if his 30 days are not contiguous,
Right.
he's keeping one day, one day, one day there, and he's got to continually let his hair grow because he can't cut it as a Nazir unless his master says, no, you're working with with cropping cutting my trees and your hair's getting tangled in the branches. So then he could force him to cut his hair too. But basically, as long as so that the slave has got to keep his Naziris eventually. Okay. Hefer leishto. Now, if he nullified his wife's vow, hefer olamis, it's gone forever. Hefer leavdo yatze lecheros mashlim naziros. So that's just what I said now. That even if he forces his slave to violate his naziris, if he releases the slave, then the slave now has to keep his naziris. Avar mikeneged panav. Now, what happens if the slave runs away? Rabbi Meir Omer lo yishteh. He says no. He should keep his naziris now, because that will encourage him. Says Rabbi Meir, it will encourage him to return to his master if the halacha is that now he has to keep his naziris and he thinks, oh, I'm missing drinking the wine. Let me go back to my master and then I'll be able to drink wine again. Rabbi Yossi says no. Yishteh. He's now not in front of his master, and that means that the chiyuv of the Naziris immediately devolves upon him, even though he ran away illegally and he's supposed to be working for his master. Nonetheless, since Lamasa he's not working right now, he has to keep his Naziris. Sorry, sorry, I beg your pardon. Rabbi Yossi is saying that he must drink wine because he's still under the dominion of his master. And therefore, if his master had to find him and bring him back, he should be ready to work immediately.
He
So,
doesn't say must. He says he may drink. Even here in this interpretation, he
uh,
may.
he may drink, um, but I think in the context of why Rabbi Yossi says that most mutalo lishtos afilu shelo nefrabo she'eved b'chol makom shehu harehu b'shus rabo va'asur lo linhog naziros. So that, he's not allowed to, is the commentary over here saying that he's not allowed to keep his full Nazirus so that he shouldn't be weak when he returns to his master.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. Bais, Nazir Shegilach. Okay, so now we're back to a regular Nazir who thinks he's completed his term, he's brought his korbanos, and he's shaved, and he comes home, and Nodalo Shehu Tameh. So he's walking back home the way he came, and he sees a whole bunch of people digging on the side of the road that he went, and he said, "Look, we just discovered a grave. There was somebody buried on this path." And he said, "Wow, but I walked over this path on my way to the Mikdash." So now, what does he have to do? Im tuma yadua. If this was a known tumor that somebody knew about but just failed to report. So, for example, there was somebody died on the road and he went to get help or whatever to bury, and so then what that does is that the Nazir now has to return back to being a Nazir. His whole Tara ceremony was done in error, and he has become tame. Now he's got to bring a korban tumah, and then he's got to keep another 30 days in order to fulfill his Naziris. But if it's a tumah setahum, a tumah of the deep, which means that nobody knew about it. So, for example, in the case that I brought you, then they discovered a grave that was under the path and nobody knew about it. Then you say, you know what? It was and also say this was not, and this, by the way, is not because of a sorry. It's a this is exeris akasov, that if there was something that was unknown to anyone, then because he didn't know at the time, so we don't nullify his Naziris, and he doesn't have to repeat it. Okay, but this is all true only if he has completed his Naziris, if he's already shaved and brought his korbanos. Im ad shelo gilach, however, if he has not yet brought his his korban, like let's say he was walking, he had completed his 30 days, he's now going to the mikdash, and then it turns out that he becomes tame between one of these things, or from one of these things, ben kach or ben kach, so it doesn't matter whether it was known or unknown, he has become tame, and therefore he needs to repeat. Ketzad. So, for example, Yarad litzbol b'mara. He went to Tovel in a cave. V'nimtza meis tzaf al pnei hamara, and after he left, it turns out there was a piece, there was an olives volume of a corpse floating in the cave, and we don't know if he touched it or not. So now what we have over here is a safek tuma b'rishos yachid. When we have a doubtful tuma in a private domain, we say that's tame. The safek is tame. Okay, so this is if he say nimtza okay tame nimtza mishuka b'karka. However, if that piece of mace was found buried in the depths of the floor of the cave, okay, Yara now so if it was something that was outside and known, then it doesn't matter what his situation was. But if it was a sunken um a tumas at home, basically the Yarad lahaker. If you just so now the Mishnah says if you went down to cool off, if you went into the cave to cool off. In other words, the reason why he went into the cave was not because he was tame. It was just that he wanted to swim. Which now that means that he started out tahor, and we say he left tahor as well. But if he went li tahor mitumas ameis, however, if he was already tame, which is an interesting thing, why if he went to become tahor from tumas ameis, then he remains tame because of the safek, we say that he's left in his chazaka. He was tame before. He's going to come out tame afterwards. Shechezkas tame tame v'chezkas tahor tahor. So we have a chazaka. If he went in tahor, then he comes out tahor. If he went in tame, he comes out tame. Shiraglaim ladavar. And we've used this phrase raglaim ladavar, which is going to be a segue to our next Mishnah. Raglaim ladavar means we have a basis for suspicion that he of what his current status is. So what's raglaim ladavar? He has another case of raglaim ladavar when we have circumstantial evidence, let's say. This Mishnah, by the way, we learned also in Ohalos. It's exactly the same Mishnah as that we saw in Ohalos. And in Ohalos, we were talking about burial plots. Typically you would bury a number of people in one place. Now, if you're busy digging up something and you want to, let's say you want to do some construction of some sort, and you're busy digging the foundations and you come across some bones. So if you just come across a set of bones, no, it's somebody died there and was accidentally buried in the place. You can remove the bones to another place and carry on your construction. However, if you actually find that this is a burial ground, then a burial ground has got the right of place, and you can't just dig it up. Okay. Um, so now what we'll see over here is the difference is what we mean by raglaim ladavar. How does raglaim ladavar affect things? Hamotze meis batchila. So if somebody's digging and he finds a mace, mushkav kedarko. Okay, so picks it up, not love estavusaso, then all he has to do is respectfully remove the bones and the earth around them because bits of human may have soaked into the earth. You take that and rebury it. Wonderful. Matzah Shnaim, he finds two bodies next to each other. Again, this could be coincidence. Not lan ve'estavusasan, he digs them up, reburies them. Matzah Shlosha, you find three separate bodies buried side by side. Okay, now we have a problem. Im yesh bein ze leze me'arba amos v'ad shmona. If they're buried between with a gap of between 4 and 8 amos between them, that is the pattern of a burial cave. Which means harei ze shchunas kvaros. This is now an official graveyard, and you're not allowed to dig that up. Okay. Bodek hemenu ulahalan esrim ama. And now that you've established that this is a burial site, if you want to build anything within 20 amas of this area, you have to dig it up and make sure that there aren't any further bodies in that area. Matzah echad besof esrim ama. So at the edge of the esrim ama within the boundaries, he comes up with one body. Okay, well that just now extended the area of your cemetery by another 20 amas. So you've just extended it. Okay. If you'd come from the other direction, the reason why you go do this, you just found one body in that area. If you'd come from the other direction and discovered just that one body, you would have said, okay, just one body, let's pick it up and bury it and rebury it. But because you came from the other direction where you already found three bodies in the other area, you have to treat that one lone body there now as part of the cemetery. That's now a reglaim ladavar, and therefore you may not remove that body. Okay, that's the thrust of our Mishnah there. Okay, let's go back to Hey Aleph.
Now, Beit Shammai says erroneous consecration is nevertheless consecration, but Beit Hillel says it is not consecration. How is this? If he said the black ox that emerges from my house first shall be sacred, and a white one emerged, Beit Shammai said it is sacred, but Beit Hillel said it is not sacred. Come on. If he said the gold thing that comes up to my hand first shall be sacred, and a silver one came up, Beit Shammai says it is sacred, but Beit Hillel said it is not sacred. If he says the barrel of wine that comes to my hand first shall be sacred, and a barrel of oil came to hand, Beit Shammai says it is sacred, but Beit Hillel said it is not sacred. Someone who vowed to be a Nazir and petitioned the sage to declare the binding, it counts from the time the vow was made, when if he inquired of a sage who permitted it, and he had an animal set aside, he may go out and pasture with the flock. But Beit Hillel said to Beit Shammai, do you not admit that where the consecration is an error, that it goes out to pasture and with the flock? Beit Shammai says to him, do you not admit that it was someone erred and called the 9th the 10th, and the 10th the 9th, and the 11th the 10th, that each one is sanctified? Beit Hillel said to them, no, it is not. It is the rod that makes it sacred. What is aired and placed the and what if he aired and placed the rod upon the 8th or the 12th, that he perhaps offered anything? Rather, Scripture would sanctify the 10th, also sanctify the 9th and the 11th. Okay. You had enough? You're leaving? Leaving? Go ahead. Okay. We have Hey Gimel. All right.
Hey Dalad.
If one says, I am to you Karam, the person prohibited by the neder is forbidden. If you are to be Karam, the person making the neder is forbidden. If I am to you and you are to me, both are forbidden. Both are forbidden in something of the pilgrims from Babylon, but are forbidden in something of that city. What is something of the pilgrims from Babylon? Things like the Temple Mount, the Temple Court, and the well in the middle of the highway. What is something of that city? Things like the public square, the bathhouse, the synagogue, the ark, and the books. One who assigns his share to the president. Rabbi Yehuda says both one who assigns to the president and one who assigns to an ordinary person. One is the difference between one who assigns to the president and one who assigns to an ordinary person. That one who assigns to the president need not give it to someone to take possession on behalf of the president. The sages, however, say both this one and that one must give their share to someone who takes possession on their behalf. When they spoke of the president only to reflect the current practice. Rabbi Yehuda says the people of Galilee need not assign, since their fathers have already assigned for them. If someone is prohibited by another to benefit from another and he has nothing to eat, the other person may give it to someone else as a gift, and he has permitted it. It happened that a person in Beit Haram, whose father was prohibited by another to benefit from him, was marrying off his son. He said to another, "The courtyard and banquet are given to you as a gift, but are yours only that the father can come to eat with us at the banquet?" He replied, "They are mine, and they are to be dedicated to heaven." And he said, "I did not give you what was mine in order for you to dedicate it to heaven." He replied, "You gave me yours only so that you and your father could eat and drink, and peace, etc., and the sin should be on my head." But when the matter came before the sages, they said, "Any gift which is not sincere, which is sanctified, is not sacred. It's not a gift." Okay.
Okay. All right, Yavamos.
Almost. What I do here.
We're just starting Yavamos again.
Okay.
You know what?
Sorry.
I'm actually going to need to leave. We started a bit late today, so I'm going to need to leave to get to Shachris. So I'm going to leave you to do the Chazaras yourself.
Stuff is okay. All
Okay.
right.
Have a
And
good
tomorrow
day.
back in line. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Sorry.
No worries.
Bye.